Today, we're taking out our JK Wrangler to see how it performs with its newly swapped in Hemi V8 under the hood. Then it's back in the shop to upgrade the suspension, install a new front axle, and shoe it with some much better wheels and tires. It's all today here on Truck Tech.
Hey guys, welcome to Truck Tech. Well, our 5.7 Hemi swap and our 07 JK Wrangler is complete. All we've got left to do is charge up our AC system, and we'll be back to where we were when this thing still had a V6 in it. Except now, we've got 2 extra cylinders and a lot more horsepower and torque. Now, before we started the engine conversion and it still had the 3.8 in it, we threw it up on the scales to see what it would weigh. Then after the swap, and as it sits now, we threw it back on the scales. We started out with 3,917 pounds. After the swap, we went up to 4,139 pounds, meaning we picked up about 200 pounds of swap weight, which is no big deal. It's going to be more than offset by the big increase in horsepower and torque. Now, before we start throwing more parts at this thing, we wanted to see how a stock JK Wrangler on stock size tires would drive and handle with V8 power. Now, there's probably not that many people that would do a V8 swap in a Wrangler and not change anything else. But we wanted to do it just to have a back-to-back comparison and see what it would be like. And you guessed it, it was a lot more fun. I shouldn't be doing that in a short wheelbase Jeep. Our 0 to 60 test was also a lot better, going from about 10 seconds down to about 8.5. Much better than before. 60. Our 60 to 0 braking test was about the same as stock, although we did notice a little bit of extra weight over the front end. And after using the brakes hard, we noticed a shimmy in the left front under hard braking. In our case, it was caused by a dragging caliper that was causing excessive heat buildup in the rotor, causing it to warp. But we can fix that too, as soon as we get back to the shop. Now, as fun as our Hemi JK is, well, it's not about straight line performance with this Jeep. And it's not that impressive with those little tires on it. So a little suspension teardown was in order so we could make room for some larger and more aggressive wheels and tires, something we can take off-road. So we removed the track bar, sway bar end links, shocks, coil springs, and lower control arms. Up front, it's more of the same. Except this time, we're prepping the axle for complete removal. Now, normally you wouldn't do this just to install a lift kit, but we've got an upgrade in mind for the front end of this thing. Now, the Dana 30 is going away, and once we get it on jack stands, then we can get the Jeep back up in the air again and remove the factory control arms. They are not going to be reused. And when it came time to picking out a suspension system for our JK, we obviously wanted to create some room for some larger and more aggressive wheels and tires. But we also needed to create some clearance so the front diff didn't crash into the engine mount every time we hit a bump. Now, we've used lift kits from Rusty's Off-Road in the past, but this time Rusty delivered it himself. What'd you bring us?
Ryan, what I brought was our 3 1/4 advanced kit with our RX 300 upgraded shocks. Now on the control arms of the kit, it comes with the massive 2-inch tubing, rubber clevite bushings on one end, forged flex joints on the other end that are adjustable and that are totally rebuildable. On the rear, we use an adjustable arm with clevite rubber bushings on this end with a forged rubber adjustable end on this end.
Now, some of the other parts in the kit are extended length rear sway bar links, forged sway bar disconnects for the front. We've shown you in the past, and they're height adjustable. We've also got 4 extended length heavy duty stainless steel braided brake hoses and some heavy duty track bars for both the front and rear. Now, the advanced kit typically ships with standard hydraulic shocks, but we went for an upgrade to the RX 300 series shocks.
Ryan, the RX 300 is a monotube shock. It also comes with a remote reservoir, carries more fluid capacity and more oil for better heat displacement. Comes with billet end caps on both ends to really secure the bushings in place and be able to take this shock and put it on the JK and really take it out on the trail and really use it hard, and this shock will not fade.
Now the last piece of the puzzle is the springs. These are 3 1/4 inch lift springs for all 4 corners, and it'll give us enough room to clear 35-inch tires. Now all the parts on the table are made right here in the USA. In fact, the majority of them are manufactured right at Rusty's facility.
One of the things I'm most proud of is our design and in-house fabrication to make all these parts. We have our in-house laser, we have in-house press brake, our in-house robot. We have some very talented people that run and operate these, and we're able to build and fabricate all our steel products, all our bumpers, our armor and rocker protection, and one of the big benefits of that is being able to keep things in stock at all times. If we do happen to run out within one day, we can usually have that part built, cut, fabricated, and powder coated and out the door within a couple of days at the very most. It's all done in-house and made in the United States.
All right, well, I'm going to get this suspension system installed, and maybe once the Jeep's all loaded down with parts and ready to go, we can meet up on some non-paved road and give these parts a little bit of a workout.
Sounds good to me.
All right, here's the plan.
Okay.
Up next, we'll get our new suspension installed. And later, it's time for a new Dana 44 up front. Stick around.
And a major improvement over stock. Hey guys, welcome back to Truck Tech, where we're doing some suspension upgrades on our 07 JK Wrangler. Now the last piece of the stock suspension to go is the lower control arm. It's going to be replaced with a much stronger version. That's not only adjustable, but will also withstand much more abuse off-road. The adjustments will allow you to dial in your pinion angle. I'm also leaving the bushing a little bit loose until we get it on the ground. Next up is the rear coil spring. After squeezing it in place, apply a little bit of pressure on the jack to make sure it stays put and to allow me to attach the sway bar end links. The sway bar end links are adjustable for different lift heights. We'll follow that up with the installation of these extra fluid capacity remote reservoir shocks. We've got a good spot for these canisters over here. Next up is our heavy-duty adjustable rear track bar, which is a snug fit in the stock track bar bracket. So a little persuasion with a rubber mallet will line things up. Now we've got the remote reservoirs for the shocks mounted right here where the muffler used to be. We've got them strapped to the rear sway bar using the provided clamps. And to make sure the hydraulic hose that connects the shock to the reservoir doesn't touch the exhaust, well, we just took advantage of one of the mounting studs for the heat shield. And the last thing we got to do to finish up the rear suspension is install these Crown Performance extended rear brake lines. Now these extended brake lines are necessary because the axle is going to be farther away from the frame. And that's just at ride height. When you flex it out, it's going to get even farther away. And if you left the stock brake lines in place, well, they'd be pulled tight. You run the risk of damage and possible brake failure. Not what you want. So these stainless steel extended lines solve that problem. And there's no need to over tighten the connection either. Just a good snug fit is all you really need. Don't forget the copper washers that go on either side of the connection at the caliper. With the rear suspension done, we can move on to the front, which replaces the stock 4 control arm setup with a Rusty's designed radius arm style control arm. Now earlier, when we installed the rear sway bar end links, we did it with the rod end facing out. But after looking at it a little while, we thought it might be close to the tire sidewall. So we simply flipped it around to get a little bit more clearance. It's not going to change the way the end link works, it's just going to give us more room.
After the break, we're prepping our new front axle. Stay tuned.
Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. We're in the middle of installing a Rusty's off-road lift kit on our JK Wrangler. And with the shocks installed, we can add the sway bar disconnects. Now, as you probably know, the purpose of the sway bar disconnect is to disconnect the front sway bar or anti-roll bar from the rest of the suspension, allowing for more suspension travel. Track bar. This part, just like the majority of them, reuses the original hardware, so keep track of all the bolts during teardown. Leave that loose till we get the axle centered. All right, now for a front axle on our Wrangler, we knew an upgrade would be necessary. If we were just running 35-inch tires and a stock drivetrain, we might be able to get away with running the stock Dana 30 front end. But even then, we'd be pushing it because these are known to have a few weak spots. And our JK, well, it's got a healthy V8 and already weighs in at well over 4,000 pounds, so we knew an upgrade would be needed. So when Rusty bought up the suspension system, well, he also dragged up this bare Pro Rock 44 housing that he sells. And it addresses all the weaknesses found in the stock housing. This Dana 44 axle has 3-inch diameter, half-inch thick axle tubes, which is much stronger than the much smaller 1/4-inch thick axle tubes on the factory housing, which are known to bend. What's also known to bend is the end forgings or inner Cs. This, very thick, lots of material. The stock version, well, you can see why it bends. In addition to that, well, all the control arm and shock mount bracketry is 1/4-inch thick and a major improvement over stock. The diff housing itself is a high clearance housing that'll glide over rocks, and it offers up just as much ground clearance as the weaker Dana 30 axle. Now obviously this is an empty housing that's going to have to be filled with a 456 ring and pinion from Motive Gear, a selectable locker, and some 10 factory axle shafts, but that'll have to be another day. For now, well, at least the stock knuckles and brakes swap over to this housing so we can get it installed. Now we do plan on a brake system upgrade. But for the purpose of getting the Jeep back down on all fours, we're going to reuse the stock parts for now. The axle shafts and unit bearing come out as an assembly. Now the tapered tie rod end was spinning in the bore on the knuckle, but the stud will accept a hex socket so you can prevent that from happening and remove the lock nut. And like we told you, the steering knuckles get reused, but old parts against new parts, well, they just look bad. So a quick coat of black paint brings the old stuff up to par. The stock axle shafts will not be reused. They're not the right size and they're not strong enough. But I'm not sure if the JK unit bearings are like the older Jeep unit bearings, where the axle shaft has to be installed to keep the bearing together and prevent it from falling apart with weight on it. So we're playing it safe and running with the axle shafts installed for now. We'll swap them out when we get our new pieces. All right, now we've got our axle installed. And once we get the Jeep back down on the ground, we can use our adjustable track bar to center the axle up. You want equal amounts of tire stick out on both sides. We can also use our adjustable upper control arms to dial in the pinion angle and the caster that we need here at the wheel. Now, this axle housing's got extra caster built into it, so you can get the pinion angle you need in a lifted application, but still have good street manners with the correct amount of caster. And once I install this last brake line, we can set this thing down on the ground. Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. Well, with the lift kit complete and the Jeep back down on all fours, well, the stock size tires look puny in the wheel wells. So let's fix that and throw some 35-inch Mickey Thompsons on here. The tires we picked out are 305/70/17 Baja MTZ radials. It's the metric equivalent to a 35/12/50. All right. Dragster style? Yeah, I didn't think so either. The wheels we've got those tires wrapped around are Mickey Thompson Sidebiter 2s in a 17/9 size with 4.5 inches of back spacing. The aluminum wheels look good, and they've reduced rotating mass and unsprung weight. Now the tires look good, the black wheels look good against our silver and black Jeep, and this thing's looking proportional with the 35s on it. We didn't make it too big. This is something you could definitely drive every day. Now, if you stand back and look at it, it looks like the front might be sitting a little bit low compared to the rear. It's probably because of the extra couple of 100 pounds of Hemi V8 swap weight. But before we do anything about it, we're going to get a spare tire carrier on here and see if a heavy tire and wheel hanging off the back levels things out. If it doesn't, well, the solution is simple. A little spring spacer will fix things right up. But with a Hemi swap, 35s and a lift kit, well, this is the Jeep you should be able to go down to the dealership and buy. They should have made this way from the factory. Now, all we got to do is something about all this plastic everywhere.
Whether you're looking for period-correct accessories to make your vehicle street legal or faithfully reproduced dealer and showroom items, LMC Truck's got your back. This stamped stainless steel exhaust deflector, of course, has the Ford logo in it. It's an officially licensed product, and it serves the function that it was meant to in the 30s and 40s. It won't let your exhaust burn the paint. This column-mounted turn signal unit updates your truck hot rod style with, of course, left and right turn signals, indicators, and hazard lights. Ties into your existing system, comes with a wiring diagram. So no matter what kind of American truck you're working on, LMC has parts with nearly 6 decades worth of vehicles. So check them out online, lmctruck.com, or have them send you a catalog. They got what you need.
Nowadays, it seems like just about everything on a vehicle is either electronically controlled or is tied to a computer module somehow, and they're not going to get any less complicated in the future. So in order to fix vehicles accurately and efficiently, you need the right tool for the job. So check out Matco's new Maximus 2.0 diagnostic tablet. This is an Android-based tablet that you're probably already familiar with. It's got a 10.1-inch high-resolution touchscreen, a 4-core processor, it's Wi-Fi capable, and its lithium-ion batteries can last up to 8 hours. Wi-Fi updates are a one-click operation, and it's got a high-resolution front and rear camera that's capable of doing both stills and video. Plus, it comes with a 2-year warranty. Now, the Maximus 2.0 obviously includes an OBD2 connector, but it also includes a box full of proprietary adapters for vehicles like BMW, GM, Chrysler, Ford, Toyota, you name it, there's probably an adapter or a cable that'll get you up and running. The docking station features a VGA output, audio out, an Ethernet connection, and 2 USB ports, along with storage for the OBD2 connector. And with the OBD2 connector plugged into a vehicle in the shop, we can show you a little bit of what this thing can do. Of course, it can read and clear trouble codes, but it can do a lot more. One of the things I like is to be able to monitor different electrical inputs. It can be really helpful when diagnosing an intermittent problem, and it lets you see what the computer sees. This thing can graph up to 15 different sensor inputs. And with the ability to record the data, well, you can drive around and try to recreate that intermittent problem and go back and view the data later. You don't have to keep your eyes on the screen. Now, this tablet is loaded with features. So if you're in the market for a scanner that can do just about everything, well, check out the Maximus 2.0 from Matco. Guys, thanks for watching Truck Tech. See you next week.